Today will be the last episode in Season 1 of the Stories Cafe podcast. So all through August, we'll take a short break, and then I will return with Season 2 and rolling out the next chapter of Stories Cafe. Today we'll be taking as our point of departure the scene from the movie The Matrix, when Neo goes to see the Oracle and meets a child who's bending a spoon and telling him that the trick to doing that is realizing that there is no spoon, there's only you. Welcome to the Stories Cafe podcast, the espresso version of Stories Cafe, offering quick, enriching moments of reflection on literature, cinema, archetypes, philosophy, and the art of living deliberately. Just like a perfectly crafted espresso at a Parisian cafe, each episode is a brief pause for you to submerge yourself in something invigorating and fulfilling. I'm Annette Wernblad, course creator, internationally published author, and wanderer at heart. So cozy up as we explore the powerful world of stories, how they shape our lives, and teach us the art of living deliberately. So today is a little bit exciting because we're going to be talking about the concept of reality. And based on those philosophical thoughts of there is no spoon, there is only you. What does this really mean? What does it actually mean on a deeper level? As I said, we're going to be talking about philosophical ideas. We're going to be talking about psychological ideas. We're going to be talking about spiritual ideas. And we're going to be talking about works of art in which these concepts figure prominently, such as The Matrix. So if we just start with that concept, there is no spoon, one of the basic ideas of spiritual thought, the idea that we have in There Is No Spoon, is that out of reality, the reality that surrounds us in the world, as opposed to inner reality, the reality we have inside of us, that outer reality is only a reflection of something inside of us. Have you ever heard that idea before? That outer reality is merely a reflection of what we have inside of us. And we have that in many different forms, in many different, for instance, movies. In The Empire Strikes Back, the second of the two original Star Wars films, there's a scene in which Luke Skywalker is going into a cave, and he asks Yoda, what is inside the cave? And Yoda says, only that which you yourself bring in there. And so I think it is such an interesting thought that what if we play around with that? I'm not saying it is so, because obviously nobody really knows. But what if we play around with that idea that outer reality is a reflection of our inner reality, that what happens to us in the outer world is something that we ourselves attract because we need it on our inner journey. The problem, of course, with that way of seeing things is that would that then mean that people who have a horrible life, who have diseases or poverty or war or something else, that they are themselves responsible for that happening? And I actually don't subscribe to that point of view. I know that a lot of spiritual thought centers around that. So, but if we leave that aside and say, what if we don't focus on people in Ukraine or people in different parts of the world or people in Afghanistan or wherever it is, or people who have terminal diseases? What if we, as a starting point, focus on ourselves and say that because that is really part of that idea. If there is no spoon, if there's only you, then there is only you. So, and I know that some of this is going to be mind-boggling, but if we just stay with that idea for a little while and say, well, if outer reality is a reflection of inner reality, if what happens to us in the outer world is something we ourselves attract because we need it on our inner journey, our journey through life. And you're all familiar with that in the Virtual Cafe, that idea of our journey through life. So if we take that same idea instead of saying, oh, focusing elsewhere and saying, oh, does that mean that a person who's terminally ill is attracted to themselves? Well, just try to stay with us for a little while and say, if we relate this to the concept that we are familiar with here, the hero's journey, then it's the same basic idea that we're walking through life and we compare the way we walk through life with a story, with a classical story or a classical myth. And if we then consider it that way and say, what if the steps along the way, instead of seeing the horrible things that happen in that hero's journey when we watch a movie, whether it's Indiana Jones or something else, let's just stay with Indiana Jones for 2 seconds. What if we considered that the things that happened to Indiana Jones on that journey is exactly what he needs to become a bigger and better and more whole person? Does any of this make sense at all? Because it is a very different way of thinking about life. It's not about blaming ourselves for whatever it is that's in our lives. It's a way of shifting. And I'm not saying you have to do that. I'm just presenting to you philosophical and psychological and spiritual ideas.
Thank you so much for joining me. I hope you enjoyed your espresso break and learned something new. If you're eager to dive deeper into the world of stories and ideas, be sure to hit the follow button in Spotify or the plus button in Apple Podcasts so that you get each new episode straight to your podcast app. You can also visit us at Stories Cafe. Just go to stories-cafe.com. There you can explore free content for a taste of what we offer, or if you're ready for more, a paid membership unlocks in-depth discussions, full access to our archives, and a vibrant community of fellow story enthusiasts. I am so thrilled to have you here, and I look forward to welcoming you back to the Stories Cafe soon.